Okay, let's unpack this. If you feel like a new groundbreaking AI model drops every single week, you are definitely not wrong. The pace has just become relentless. And trying to keep track of it all, which model is ahead, and maybe more importantly, why any of it matters to you, it can feel exhausting. That's precisely why we're doing this deep dive. We've collected a fantastic set of insights today to move past all the announcements. We're going to focus on the business reality. So we'll get into the intense competition between the giants, a really crucial look at why model transparency is actually decreasing, and then a peek into the next generation of agentic AI.
Exactly. Our mission today is to cut through all that noise, right? The press releases, the flashy benchmarks. We're here to understand the actual market forces.
Mhm.
The so what? What's driving this constant, very expensive churn? And, what's the real value for a modern enterprise that actually needs stability? And for us as users, what do we really gain from this week-to-week race?
And speaking of that race, the first big story is the rumor that OpenAI reportedly called a code red.
Yeah.
Yeah, to accelerate the release of GPT 5.2. And this whole thing is apparently a direct response to the impression Google's Gemini model made.
Which is such a fascinating reversal of the narrative.
It really is. I mean, early last year, the story was OpenAI just crushing the competition. Now you have Google, who everyone thought was lagging, suddenly putting the pressure on.
And forcing OpenAI to play defense.
Exactly. The current whispers suggest 5.2 will also come with these models codenamed Chestnut and Hazelnut
Right. The image generation model.
to compete directly with the leading specialized models in that space.
Well, it creates this fantastic drama, and at the end of the day, competition is a good thing. This kind of high-stakes dynamic,
Yeah.
it pushes the technical boundaries. And, eventually, the consumer wins. The tools get faster, cheaper, more capable.
True, but
But, and this is a big but, we need to be a little skeptical of the whole code red framing. Is this really about some revolutionary technical issue?
it is just a PR strategy.
Exactly. A PR move to keep the investment and the media narrative on their side. Because if you look at what 5.2 is likely to be, the experts in the sources, they aren't suggesting a huge revolutionary uptick in productivity. It's not GPT-6.
I share that skepticism. It feels less like a new generation and more like, well, one expert called it the latest Windows or macOS hotfix.
That's a great way to put it.
Just minor, highly optimized updates. But those minor updates are really important to understand. They aren't trying to change the world. They're focused on optimizing, performance, speed, cost.
In very specialized use cases.
Right, like models built just for IDEs, like Cursor or the Claude Code equivalent.
Yep.
They're optimizing for a handful of specific and usually public benchmarks.
And that gets us to the core market driver here.
Yeah,
Everyone agrees the current benchmark system is, let's be honest, a little bit rotten.
it is.
It measures these narrow academic skills
Hmm.
that don't always reflect what users actually need. But it doesn't matter how flawed it is absolutely motivating this corporate activity. OpenAI is rushing 5.2 out because they need to be number one on those specific public leaderboards.
That focus on benchmarks it's kind of absurd. And it raises a bigger question, right? How are these companies even defining efficiency?
That's the perfect pivot. We're all chasing raw capability,
Right.
but the cost, the sheer computational cost, is causing this divergence. Stanford's Hazy Lab had a great point on this. If you look at intelligence per watt,
Performance per unit of electricity.
exactly. Local, highly optimized models can often get you the same performance as the big hosted ones, but at a way lower energy cost.
Which suggests the industry is prioritizing investment dollars over, actual cost effectiveness.
They're chasing the high scores, not necessarily the most efficient solution. For enterprises, though, that performance per cost metric is what really matters for the long term.
This cost discussion leads perfectly into the transparency paradox. So, to try and quantify this, Stanford releases its annual Transparency Index, and they break down visibility into 3 key areas. First, they look at upstream factors, so everything about the data, where it came from, how it was licensed, the review process.
A whole data story.
Then they assess training details. Is the lab releasing code? Architecture details. And finally, downstream factors. Safety benchmarks, performance gaps, and even specifics on successful attack prompts.
And the general trend is, well, it's a little concerning. If you compare 2024 to 2025, transparency has generally diminished across most of the big labs.
So they're sharing less, not more.
Right. A lot of models, like from Anthropic, OpenAI, X.AI, they're not even telling us the parameter counts anymore.
And why is that? Is it just secrecy for secrecy's sake?
It's competitive. If you disclose your parameter count and your training costs, your rivals can use that to frame you as inefficient or point out your high operational costs. So it's a strategic choice to pull back that curtain.
That pullback makes the counter trend really stand out. And this is where that market split you mentioned becomes so clear.
It really does. Look at IBM with their Granite models. They achieved the top score on the index, 95 out of 100.
Wow.
And the sources say this is because IBM invested heavily in a standardized automated training architecture. It creates this clean, traceable model lineage.
So standardization makes it easier to be transparent.
It simplifies information sharing, and it also helps them with strict regulatory compliance, like that ISO 42001 certification.
Okay, so there's the divergence. You have B2B players like IBM, AWS, NVIDIA. They're getting more transparent.
Because they have to. Their enterprise clients demand that visibility. They need to know the cost, the CO2 emissions, the long-term viability, especially if they're running these models on their own infrastructure.
But on the B2C side,
The consumer models are pulling back. It's leading to what one expert called the Appleification of AI, meaning people are perfectly happy to pay for a closed, opaque system as long as it gives them that ultimate convenience and performance. They don't need to see what's under the hood.
but doesn't that raise a red flag for you, the listener? If convenience comes at the cost of opacity, are we worried about this? It sounds a lot like the early days of social media.
It's a huge risk.
Capability comes first, and then transparency and privacy concerns only show up later once the tech is totally saturated in our lives.
That's the risk, and it's why that enterprise distinction is so important. Enterprises often confuse the demand for transparency with the demand for open source. They're not the same thing.
Good point.
Transparency is just a tool for critical thinking and ethical application. The B2B market is demanding it, which shows their maturing past just can it do the thing into how does it do the thing and can I trust it?
And this focus on B2B trust brings us to the big infrastructure player in the room, Amazon. Their new generation of Nova Frontier models announced at AWS re:Invent made huge waves. Amazon has always been this looming force, right? Because of its scale, the data. Is Nova the big swing that really puts them in the game?
They are absolutely pushing to cement that position, and the new features show they are laser focused on that high-value enterprise customer.
So what's new?
Well, first they introduced Nova Forge. It's meant to democratize model building. So instead of just fine-tuning, it lets customers take Amazon's early training checkpoints
Okay.
and blend their own proprietary data in to create custom pre-trained models.
So a bank could create a model that just inherently understands its own internal regulatory documents from the ground up.
Precisely, without having to build a massive research lab from scratch.
And the other big one was Nova Act.
That's right, Nova Act. This is the enterprise version of a consumer browsing a website. But critically, ACT is trained specifically on automating actions across enterprise screens. Complex things like SAP or Oracle CRM systems, not Instacart.
The goal is automation for those legacy systems.
Exactly. Imagine a procurement agent just autonomously completing a complex multi-step purchase order across 5 different ancient screens. That's the vision.
Nova Forge, though, sounds like it's targeting that customization demand directly. But the experts in our sources seemed really skeptical about the value of fine-tuning for most businesses. Why in that?
It's all about practicality and cost. Let's put this in context for you. For the vast majority of your use cases answering HR questions, summarizing sales reports, custom fine-tuning is it's overkill.
It's too expensive.
It's incredibly expensive, and it's a nightmare to maintain because your data is always changing. You'd have to retrain models every single week just to keep up. And enterprises prioritize stability above almost anything else.
So what's the better alternative?
The pragmatic route is using cheaper, more agile techniques. Things like retrieval augmented generation, graph RAG, agentic RAG. You combine that with reliable tool use, and the model can access real-time data cheaply. No massive retraining overhead.
So fine-tuning is only for the big players.
It's really only viable for that 1% of companies with massive data science teams. For everyone else, stick to agents and tool use. It's the way to go.
Well, if tool use is the path forward, that brings us to Amazon's biggest claim. Their frontier agents can operate for hours or even days on end. Now, so what does this all mean? Are we really getting close to a world where we can give a computer a complex task, say, synthesize all internal legal documents for a major court case, and it just comes back 3 weeks later with a finished, verified deliverable?
We are definitely heading there. And it's so important to understand, the advance isn't just about the time. Agents could always run for a week, but the results would be, Garbage.
Unreliable.
Total unreliable. The engineering advance is about reliable tool use and context management over that long period.
Okay, so what's improving?
Two main areas. First, reliable tool use. We're seeing a huge improvement in the number of tools an agent can call, sequentially or in parallel. It allows the agent to build complex things piece by piece, checking his work as it goes.
And the second area would be managing all that information it's generating.
Exactly. Context management is vastly improved. During these long jobs, the agents are using very smart techniques to compact and summarize the LLM's limited context.
Is that like the researcher features we see in ChatGPT or Gemini?
That's a perfect example. It's condensing this massive context window into a summary that's good enough for the agent to continue its task for hours without losing the plot. This deep researcher function is the natural evolution for enterprise AI. If you want a high-value deliverable like writing a book or that 300-page RFI response, the agent has to touch vast amounts of data over a long time. The curve for reliable task completion is definitely shifting from minutes to hours, and soon to days.
That really brings it all full circle, doesn't it? We started with the kind of competitive vanity driving the market, moved to the absolute need for transparency, for enterprise trust, and now we've ended on this tool-driven evolution of long-running agents.
And that new frontier of agents running for days presents a huge, immediate challenge. I mean, we just spent time talking about how rotten the existing benchmarks are for simple, static models.
Right.
So the final provocative thought for you to consider is this. If the real business value is now coming from agents that run reliable tasks over multi-day or multi-week periods, how on earth is the industry going to create new standardized metrics to quantify the reliability and accuracy of that long-term behavior?
A benchmark for a 3-week task.
Exactly. That need for robust long-term measurement. That will be the next and maybe most crucial evolution of this whole benchmark discussion.
Food for thought, indeed. The interplay between competition, transparency, and true enterprise value is only getting more complex. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.